In order to change your life, you need to know this one thing. And that is, in life, the only thing that's constant is change. Remember Blockbuster? That's correct. Now, if you're old enough, you will know that Blockbuster used to be a huge chain where they rent out video games and, yes, DVD movies. Do you know that at one point, Blockbuster actually has an opportunity to acquire Netflix for $50 million? Only $50 million. But because the CEO lacked the vision and he lacked the ability to change, what happened? They didn't take action. And Blockbuster in 2010 went bankrupt when it's lost over $1.1 billion. And where's Netflix today? Netflix is now with a market cap of over $150 billion. You and I know, we even talk about it, Netflix and chill. It becomes a term, it becomes a verb, it becomes a household brand. And of course, the founder, CEO of Netflix is now a billionaire. You see, in order for things to change, first what? You have to change. In order for anything to change, first, you must make that change. I remember when I was working for my first mentor, Alan, when I was in my early 20s. At the time, Alan has a very successful company, and he was marketing the business using broadcast fax. Now, for the millennials, they're like, what the hell is fax? Yes, good old fax machine. At the time, we'll use broadcast fax, kind of like think about email, but you're able to send a lot of these faxes out there to market your products and services. And it was extremely profitable because it's cheap as hell. And we were making a ton of money. Then suddenly one day the government saying, you know what? You cannot do broadcast fax no more. You cannot spam people with faxes no more. Okay, that immediately killed that revenue stream. And then we found out, you know what? Maybe we can do outbound tailored marketing. So we were doing a lot of cold calling to bring in business. And then that was working at one point, working very well. And then guess what? The government is saying you cannot now do that. They have now what we call a do not call list. These people you cannot call anymore. Okay, that also affected us. That is change. You see, one of the most powerful questions you can ask yourself is, what can go wrong next? What can go wrong next? What can I capitalize on next? One of the favorite questions that I like to ask is, what will happen if blank? What will happen if blank? Ask yourself, what will happen if you lose your job? What will happen if your investment tanks? As an entrepreneur, ask yourself, what will happen if you lose your most important client or account? What will happen if you lose your most important employee? What will happen if your vendor goes out of business without warning? What will happen if your local economy changes? What will happen if you cannot market the same way that you're marketing right now? What will happen if one of the platforms that you're using no longer works? What will happen if? When you ask yourself those questions, not being overly optimistic, because one of the things I believe is when times are good, you don't want to be overly optimistic. You don't want to be overconfident. When times are bad, you don't want to be overly pessimistic. That's okay, because tough times don't last, but tough people do. As Confucius said, real knowledge is to know the extent of one's ignorance.